Hello and welcome to another episode of Energy Express. I'm your host, Zach Harrell. We're going to begin today's episode at Knapp Hall, where Ethan is going to teach us how to make our very own robot hand.
My name is Ethan Meighen. I am a student worker here at Knapp Hall in Morgantown at West Virginia University, mainly through 4-H. And today I'll be guiding you guys through the activity of making a prosthetic or robotic hand. So say someone didn't have an arm for some reason or another. If they get an arm, an artificial arm or not man-made, that would be a prosthetic. So today we'll be making a prosthetic hand that will actually move and hopefully actually grab something by the end of it. So here are all the materials on the table. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take some construction paper. I'm going to use this green one because it's nice and colorful. I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to trace my hand. So you want to make sure it's flat right there. And I'm just going to start tracing. You want to make sure you get all the fingers in there and there's enough space in between each finger to distinguish it. You also want to draw the base of the hand. You don't want to connect it. You kind of want to have the start of your arm as well. So we're going to start cutting it out. And there we go. We basically have a rough shape of my own hand. So now we're going to want to take our thin cardboard and kind of do the same thing with some extra steps. All right, so now we have a cardboard hand. You can see it's the same hand as our construction paper hand. You want the fingers to line up nicely for the steps we're about to take. All right, so now for the next steps, we're going to kind of transfer our cardboard onto our construction paper, but not all at once. We're going to do it in sections. So the first thing you want to do is you kind of want to match where your fingers are, in terms of your hand. So for example, there's always going to be little creases on the inside of your hand, and those will be your joints where you can move those fingers. Your thumb is always going to be a little different, so we're only going to focus on these 4 fingers right here. And you can see the joints are all where the fingers meet the palm of your hand, which is this circle part right here. So I'm just gonna make a little note on my own hand right here that this is the kind of joint line. And now you're gonna cut right on that joint line. So when you cut it, you wanna make sure that your fingers stay in the position that they're in. Alright, and now we should have our entire hand cut out and laid out in a very neat manner. So now we just have to kind of glue everything to our hand. And at each point, we're just gonna glue the cardboard to the construction paper. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue it. And you don't need a lot of glue each time, you just need enough. And you see we now have our cardboard glued on to our construction paper, and we're just going to do that for each section of the cardboard we have. All right, so now your hand should kind of be looking like a skeleton's hand. And what we're gonna do, each little section with the straws, each section of each finger, we're going to cut out a portion of that straw that fits on that section. So I will do a quick example right here. And I want to mark out on the straw. And you're going to cut on the straw. These are easy to lose, so like you just saw, it kind of flew. So I'll pick that up. We have a section of straw right here. And you can see I measured it to where it'll fit on the bottom segment of my pinky finger. So there's two ways of doing this next part. You can either keep using the hot glue, or you can tape the straw onto here. I'll show you both ways. All right, so we have the two upper segments. Now we're gonna move on to this segment right here. We're gonna do the same technique where it's gonna make the straw bit a little bit longer, and we're gonna angle it. So we're still gonna cut to the length of it. So you see that the straw is at the length of the segment, but we're gonna put it at an angle. So eventually when we put the string in, the string will go like that. Awesome. So we're gonna do the same thing for the four fingers. So now we have a very colorful looking hand with some random, seemingly random stuff on it. And believe it or not, we're actually almost done. So one of the last steps is we're going to add a handle to this. So I'm just going to use a popsicle stick. I'm either going to glue or tape it to the back just like that. So when we turn around, we have a nice little handle to it. All right, so now I have a handle, and look at that. We have a nice little handle for our little hand. So one of the last steps to make it move is we're going to add some string to it. And we're also going to take our beads. We're going to take our string, thread it through our bead, and we're just going to tie it to where that bead doesn't move up and down like that. Do it once, and I'll do it one more time just for safe measures. And the other end of the string, we're going to thread through a finger. So first straw, you can see it's threaded through. We want to also thread it through each of the other straws. And then you're just going to cut the string off around where the handle is. So that's one finger done. And when you pull the string, you bend the finger. Look at that. So pull the string, finger bends, pull the string, let go, finger straightens out. So that's pretty much how the hand works. And after you do this for each of the steps, you're basically done, but there's one final step at the end. All right, so the very last step you want to do after you have all your strings through each of the straws, so whenever you pull on all of them, you want to thread all these strings through the one straw right here. Now, if you have all of that, you have a working hand. So you can kind of bend at the joints or at the parts where these straws and cardboard are not attached to the construction paper. And just like that, the finger will bend a bit easier. That's all.
What do you call a factory that only makes okay stuff? A satisfactory.
Hello everyone, I am Sheldon Owen, Extension Wildlife Specialist with the West Virginia University Extension Service. Today we are at the West Virginia University Research Forest right outside of Brewston Mills. I'm along with my colleague,
Dave McGill, I'm the Forest Resources Extension Specialist, and today we're going to be looking at some of these logs that are down on the forest floor and kind of seeing what kind of habitats they create for organisms and plants and things like that.
Well, when we're thinking about habitat out in our forests, what are the three main components of habitat? Food, water, and shelter. Or a lot of times when we talk about wildlife, we talk about cover, because they don't build their own shelter. They just use what is available to find cover, to find protection. And one of the things we commonly overlook are just these down, rotten logs, trees that have fallen in the woods, or a limb that has fallen off, and as it is sitting on the forest floor, it's decaying, it's rotting, and it creates this great little micro habitat, if you will, because it's providing cover for a lot of our small salamanders, maybe even mice, rodents, voles that could be using this. And as it decays, it's also creating a great place for insects. So as insects are growing inside of these logs, and they're feeding on some of these logs as they are decaying, and it's providing protection for those as well.
Yeah, one of the organisms that sometimes we overlook when we see one of these large logs on the forest floor are the fungi, and they are actually the ones creating this habitat. Different types of wood decay fungi, they get in there, their little strands of hyphae grow and decompose the wood and make it softer and absorb more moisture for, creating your microsites for these small creatures.
So it doesn't look like much, right? And when this tree fell, it made a noise or not, or made a sound or not, it's definitely an important component of our forest and woodland floors across West Virginia. And it doesn't have to be a very large log, like if we look along the length of this one, this is a tree that has fallen over, but it could just be a limb or some bark, it's exfoliating bark that has fallen off. Anything that creates that cover can create a microhabitat for a lot of different species.
The moss creates the initial habitat. Of course, it holds moisture very well, and if you look under here, it's actually probably developing a little soil, but these little birch seedlings, they'll grow and they'll put roots down, and the roots will extend all the way down into the ground, and then when the log decomposes, you'll have these trees called stool trees that are kind of standing, and they can be 6, 8 feet tall. Yeah, so if you are collecting moss for a terrarium or a fairy garden, something like that, you just kind of come up to the log, lift it up, and it comes up in a mat. But you don't want to take too much, because you want to leave a space, and you want to leave some other plants, other moss here, so it regenerates that spot that you collect it from. So if you look under here, you can see a lot of this material that's already decomposed on the tree itself. You can see, you can actually pull some of this stuff up. It's actually very soft materials, like compost. And so, all these white things, that's fungi that's continuing to break that down and create a better, habitat for small little creatures.
So if you were to take all of the salamanders that are around here and the reptiles that are around here on our forest floor and kind of pile it up, the biomass that will result from that is larger than piling up all the birds or piling up all the mammals that are found down here. So, it's always a good idea. Maybe you can see that my hands are still wet, because these amphibians will absorb any type of chemical or water and even oxygen through their skin. If we're handling these with dry hands, we're actually drying the salamander out. And so you want to make sure that your hands are wet when you're handling these. It makes it a little bit more difficult because they are pretty quick and slick. It can escape quite easily, but you don't want to dry them out. And also keep in mind that whatever you have on your hand, if you have lotions or any type of perfume or anything that could be on your hand, that amphibian is now absorbing it when you're holding it like this. When it's, the temperature is right and we have a little bit of rainfall, it's moist enough, these will come out and walk around on the forest floor. So you'll actually see them on top of the leaf litter that's on the ground. But because they have to stay in moist environments, as the leaf litter dries out or the conditions above ground dry out, they'll actually dig down into the ground looking for that moisture. And it could be 6 inches to a foot, maybe even 2 feet deep, that they're digging down looking for that moisture to find the perfect environment, the perfect habitat for them to stay moist and stay alive. So what we found here is a juvenile form of our red-spotted newt. You can see the red spots along its back with kind of the black outline. Now these are juvenile, and we talked about how most of our amphibians, the young are in water and the adults are on land or can be on land, whereas the red-spotted newt, the juveniles are on land, and they can stay on land in this phase, and this is called the red F phase, for maybe 2 years or more, 2 to 4 years. And so they're just walking around. You can see they're a little bit drier. They still need some moist conditions, but they're a little bit drier and can handle drier conditions than many of our other salamanders. But if you look at this coloration, that lets us know that there's something different about this species, and it is slightly toxic. So if a bird or something were to come along, or a snake to come along and try to eat this, it's very bitter tasting, so it will actually spit that out. It won't kill the animal if they eat it, but it can make them sick and gives them a bad taste. And if you pick these up, it won't make you sick, but it's always a good idea to make sure you wash your hands after you handle any animal to make sure that you're not picking up anything that it could be carrying. So when you're out flipping over logs, maybe flipping rocks, always be careful because you don't know what's underneath it. We do have some venomous snakes, 2 species of venomous snakes that occur here in West Virginia, and we don't want you to be bitten by those. So whenever you're flipping a log or flipping a rock, you always want to kind of flip it and roll it towards you. So if there's a snake on the opposite side, it's away from you, and you can, if you needed to, you could quickly drop it back in and keep yourself protected. But just keep in mind that we do have venomous snakes out there, and be safe. Be snake aware when you're out in the woods looking around to make sure that you're protecting yourself. Never pick up a snake, because we always want to know, they're fun to handle and they're fun to see, but you always want to know and make sure which species of snake it is, because these venomous snakes can bite and will bite if you pick one up, and it could cause some serious harm.
Okay, I think today we looked around at some of these logs, what's under them, the small microsites of these trees that have fallen, and creating great places for small creatures to live.
Found some pretty interesting critters so far. We found a eastern redback salamander, the red F stage of the eastern spotted newt, and we also found, what else did we find?
Slimy, but it got away.
We saw a slimy salamander, but we missed it. We found one of our dusky salamanders out here. So it's a great opportunity to get out and explore and find some new critters. Across West Virginia, we have 35 different species of salamanders. Now, they don't occur everywhere. So some only occur in small areas, like the Cheat Mountain salamander only occurs up in high elevations around Cheat Mountain. And so you may not find it. And so as you go out in your backyards and explore, there may be some different salamanders that you may find. But remember, as you're going out and you're looking, we encourage you to explore and find these things, but always leave the habitat, the area, as you found it. And so if you flip a rock over, flip a log over, always put it back and place it where you found it, because something's using that for protection and for cover. And keep your hands wet and keep your hands clean when you're handling these, because those salamanders are absorbing whatever's on your hands. And you can dry them out if you're handling them with dry hands. But we definitely encourage you to get out and explore, find the mushrooms, the fungi that are out there, the salamanders that are out there, insects that we really didn't talk about today.
One of the funnest things you could do here in West Virginia, explore the forest.
Cheap, easy, and a lot of fun, because you'll never know what you're going to find out there.
How about a joke? Skeleton walks into a restaurant. The waiter comes up and says, "How can I help you, sir?" The skeleton says, "Oh, I'll just take a large glass of milk and a mop."
Hi, I'm Kerri Carte with Kanawha County's WVU Extension Service. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I'm going to be making for you a cucumber and tomato salad. As we approach summer, it's a great time to use all of our fresh fruits and vegetables that are coming in from the garden or the farmer's market. Unfortunately, I'm a little ahead of the season, so I had to buy at the grocery store. But if you do that, you'll still make it work. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to use tomatoes and cucumbers. The cucumber that I have purchased, I did get at a grocery store. So if you notice, there's a nice wax on the outside of it. They do that to protect it and transport, but it's not really the best to eat. If you've got fresh cucumbers, I would leave the skin on, but since we don't, I'm going to take the skin off. And I'm going to lower my camera here so that you can see what I'm working on. So I've got this great cucumber. I've already washed it and cleaned it. I'm going to simply cut off my ends because we don't need those. And then, like I said, this has a wax on it, so I'm going to peel it. Now you can peel it either with a peeler. If you don't have a kind of a peeler, you can use a straight little knife. We'll take it off just as well. But I'm just going to go ahead down, take off all of this skin. This is a shame to do because there's lots of fiber in the skin of a cucumber. But with that wax coating on it straight from the grocery store, we're going to go ahead and remove most of it. It just is not very tasteful. And once I get all of the skin removed, I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to chop it right in half. I find that smaller sections are easy to work with. I'm going to cut it in half and half again. You see kind of a pattern here. I just keep setting it down in half. Now, these seeds are pretty small, so they're not too bad, but generally speaking, seeds and cucumbers are pretty large and not really very tasty. So we're just going to remove that. There's really no nutritional value that comes from the seeds, or not much. Most of it comes from the meat or the flesh of the vegetable, and that's what we like to eat. So I'm left with this nice, beautiful cucumber. What I do is I'm going to take them and slice them down in half again. And I just stack them up here. As you can see, I'm using a chef's knife. It's nice and sharp. Your knife should be sharp when you're working. And I'm just going to cut it down. Okay? And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it in my bowl so that I can get ready to work on a tomato. Now, my tomatoes are small. Okay? Generally, I use 2 cucumbers and 2 tomatoes, but these were so small, I did do a couple of extras. I'm going to remove the stem if you have it. If your knife is sharp like mine is, you can easily slice it down. I remove the core. That's the green part in the center. It's very hard and hard to chew. Won't hurt you if you eat it, but it doesn't taste real good. Now, my knife is sharp, so I'm able to easily slice it down. If your knife is not as sharp, or if you have a serrated blade like this, some people actually call this a tomato knife, it is very easy to slice down a tomato with it, okay? And I'm just gonna kind of roughly chop these up. Doesn't have to be any kind of a precise way to cut them. Just as long as you get them chopped, that's really all that you need. So I'm gonna kind of chop these in pieces. Now, if you get tomatoes from the farmer's market or from your own garden, these will be really juicy. You can see I still have some juice on the bottom of it, and that juice adds a lot of flavor. So you want to use that juice if you at all possibly can in your salad. I'm going to go ahead and add that to the rest of my salad. So what I have done is cut up 2 cucumbers and 2 tomatoes. And as you can see, I've got a beautiful bowl here of just the cucumbers and the tomatoes so far. Now, what I like about this salad is that it's got bacon in it. Who doesn't love bacon? I have previously fried this. It's nice and crispy. I'm just going to kind of break it in half to make it workable. You could crumble it with your hands. I like to just take my knife and chop it down. Nice little bite-sized pieces that you can put it in your salad, and it'll be nice and flavorful. Okay? So I'm going to take that bacon and I'm going to toss it on the top of my salad. And then from there, we need a dressing, because every salad is better with a dressing, right? Now this one I make very simply. I just use a mayonnaise, okay? Now I like to use a light mayonnaise. I think it, helps save on the calories. So my rule of thumb is 2 tomatoes, 2 cucumbers, 2 strips of bacon, and about 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, okay? Maybe a titch more. You don't want to drown it in the mayonnaise. It'll get too sloppy. But just a little bit, just to coat it through there. Got an awful lot for my bowl. I'm losing some nice yummy pieces. And I am also going to take and I'm going to add a little bit of salt. You don't need much salt in this because the bacon has a lot of salt, but just a little bit I find that adds a nice flavor to it and makes it nice and crunchy. Okay. So a little bit of salt there. And you can see I'm using a spatula to stir it with. It's easier that way. Just kind of keep fluffing it around until you get that mayonnaise mixed in there. This always reminds me of a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. And that's all there is to it. If you like more bacon, you can add more bacon. If you like more cucumbers, you can add more cucumbers. And that's it. It's a beautiful salad. It's fresh, it's crisp, it's nice to take to parties. It's great to eat in the evenings. It's very refreshing. If you want to make it fancy, I have here some lettuce. Any kind of a butter lettuce, a bib lettuce will do great for this. I like to pull the bigger leaves that I have. And I say this is fancy, but it's not really fancy. It's very simple to do. I take and I cut off the end of the stem. I have a small spoon here, and I just take and I scoop a little of that in there. I make sure I get a little bit of everything. That's a little too much. So I've got some bacon, some cucumber, and tomatoes in there. And then I just take it and I fold the ends in and I roll it up. Okay? And it makes you a nice little leaf. Now that one I didn't roll so well. Let's try again. You can easily just roll them straight if you want, almost like a burrito. I'm gonna put it down on the surface here. If you roll it just like a burrito, then they'll sit very nicely just like that. And you can pick them up and eat them straight as you want, okay? So that works if you want to, but like I said, you can easily just go ahead and serve the salad straight from the bowl and eat it, and it is delicious. So I hope you enjoyed today's cucumber tomato salad. If you would like to adapt it, you can. It's a salad. If you have red onions around, you want to add a little onion in there, that's fine, or some scallions. If you've got some fresh bell peppers around, anything you want to add is fine. But the basics are 2 tomatoes, 2 cucumbers, 2 bacon slices, and 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, any kind of mayonnaise you want. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Energy Express. We'll be right back here tomorrow morning, and we hope to see you here.